Okay, we are beginning goal 8 today. That's not you guys though. So I want to talk a little bit about your outline here before we get started on our notes for today. There are just 4 goals in goal 8. 8.1, what we're doing first of all is solving a system of equations, which means that everything we did in goal 7 was one equation with an x or a y or an x and a y, okay? But now we're going to have 2 equations. One question will be 2 equations with x and y. And we're looking for, if it exists, the solution that works for both equations at the same time, okay? We will learn 3 distinctly different methods of doing that. One is by graphing, and the graphing that we will do will be on the calculator. Okay, so we're not doing the graphing by hand. That will be graphing on the calculator. The second method is substitution. Third method is elimination or linear combination. And then we'll close it out with a section of word problems. Probably the most challenging part of this will be that. And then once we set up our word problems, then it will be, you can choose your method of solving. Okay, but you'll have to know how to do all 3. I will distinctly ask, solve it using this method. Okay, so this will take us up to March 8th, about the middle, almost middle of March there. Okay, so we're on this for a little bit here. It involves lots and lots of solving, which some of you have still not figured out yet. Okay? Solving. I mean, we're going to be solving for chapter 8, chapter 9, everything but probably the radicals, the square root equation, the chapter. We're solving for the rest of the semester. We've got to get this down. All right, so goal 8.1. So let's get those notes loaded if you did not do that. I'm going to be on the whiteboard instead of kind of in my notes. So you're going to have to follow your notes on your own kind of thing, but I'll be writing it up on the whiteboard here so I can record this part of it too. All right, so let me talk a little bit about this before I switch over to my laptop. When we solve a system of equations by graphing, you absolutely have to have it in y equals form, okay? Unfortunately, this was the portion of the test that was the most missed, getting it into y equals form, okay? But on our calculator, that's what it wants. It wants the y equals form, so it has to be in that form. When we do these questions, I will expect 3 things from you for each question. 1, I want to see the y equals equation. So put a box around them, put a circle around them, I don't care. Something that says, this is what I'm putting into my calculator, okay? The second thing I want is the sketch from the window. That little part up there where the graph is visual, that's called the window. So I want a sketch that's accurate, not precise, not like draw the grid lines and everything like that, but a definite accurate sketch. You'll see when I do mine in a minute what I mean. And then obviously I want the answer. What is the answer to the question? So 3 things I'm going to be looking for, okay? Solving for y is the most important thing. You've got to be able to do that or none of these are right. Okay, so solving for y, getting y alone is really, really, really key. Okay, so let me switch to my laptop here, and then we'll get started on that first one. And switch my internet. Hopefully that comes up. Okay, so a couple things that we need to talk about on our calculator first before we do anything else, okay? Because it won't work unless some of these things are present. Okay, so first thing I want you to go to is your mode. The mode is right next to your blue key. We did a little bit of this the day we introduced calculators. I went through some of this, but now we're really going to be, it's going to be important to have it in the right stuff. to graph, okay? If you don't have a color calculator, you don't have all of this, well, you probably do down below actually. It won't fit on one screen, so yours is below. But the most important things are that it is one in normal mode. If it's not in normal mode, use your cursor key to go over to there, press enter and it goes to that. That your decimals are on float, that's the next thing down where it says float. That you're in radian and not degree, and that you are in the function mode. So that second, third, fourth, and fifth thing on your calculator, that's what's important, okay? So it used to move out of some of these things when you did games and things on here, but they've really done a good job now where it kind of, this is kind of what it is all the time unless you change it, okay? Some questions about that? Okay, yes?
On the stat diagnostics,
Yeah.
I have mine on.
Just go turn it off. I don't know what that is actually, but just go turn it off. Okay, the next thing I want you to do is format. Format is up here. It's in blue. If you look where I'm circling my cursor, it's in blue. So I'm going to go second zoom, and that's format.
Where is Zoom?
If you have a black and white calculator, I don't have one of those. Yes, I do. Let me go get it so I can know what I'm saying here. Then you don't get all of that stuff, and that's okay. It's not a big deal. So make sure you're in the rectangular coordinate plane. That's that top blinking one. That your coordinates are on. I don't like my grids on. You can play with that later if you want. Axes, I have my, this is where if you have color, you can change the color of things and all of that kind of stuff. You can change your background to be something that's not just a plain thing, it's a picture, I don't care. You can play with that on your own time. The most important thing is that you're in the rectangular plane, that your coordinates are on. If you have just a regular calculator that's not black or that's not color, you have to have your axes on or off. You want them on for sure. They're automatically on there, so. Some questions about that? Yes, sir?
So how did I do that?
How you do what?
Get it out.
Format. Follow along. I don't have time to repeat 100 times today. Format. Up here, it's in blue, so you have to go second zoom.
Oh, okay.
Okay, the next thing I want you to go to is your window. No, I don't. I want you to go to y equals first. Go to y equals. Y equals is right here at the top where I'm circling my cursor. The top leftmost button on your calculator. If you have equations in here, you need to clear them out. So you just go to it by moving your cursor and pressing clear. Your clear button is under your cursors. Make sure you go down below because there is room for 10 equations, so there's one below here too. So you got to cursor down and make sure there's nothing in those. So there's room for 10 equations. Make sure you go all the way down to the 0. And again, if there's something there, you just press clear. This is the thing people miss the most on their graphing. And if we're in a situation where we're assessing, I am not going to help you with your calculator. Okay, that's on you. So I'm telling you these things now. Sometimes accidentally you put the plots on. Okay, so that's what it looks like when the plot is on. It's highlighted. That means plot 1 is on. I'm going to just show you real quickly what kind of error message you get. Don't worry about anything else that I'm doing here. Just let me graph. Okay, so I get an error message that says invalid dimensions. And down at the bottom here, it'll tell you what's wrong. You've got your plots on. It talks about the plots. So when you get that error message, it kind of tells you what's happening. To turn the plots off, you just cursor up to it, press enter, and it turns it off. If you make sure they're off right now, the only way you get them on is by accident. Totally accident. Moving your cursor too fast, too quick, pressing enter. Okay? I've done it before, so I know it can happen. So if you turn them off now, hopefully they won't come on. You don't have to worry about it. Okay? The next thing we'll talk about is your window. Press window, that's right next to your y equals. Your window tells you how your graph is labeled. So right now, what this tells me is my graph paper on my calculator is going to go from -10 to +10 on the x-axis. So my x minimum is a -10, my x maximum is a +10, and I'm going by ones, the x scale. The y minimum is -10, the y max is +10, and I'm going by ones. That's the window we want. We want that window. I will keep everything in a 10 by 10 grid, okay? Actually, I guess it's more than 10. -10 to 10 grid on the x and y. Everything we're going to do is going to stay in there. That won't be the case in your other math because you'll learn to change the window and do things with it. Sometimes your window gets out of whack for I have no idea what reason, okay? If that should happen, okay, these are the magic 2 buttons to press. Zoom, 6. Get you back to the -10 to +10 grid on the x and y axis by ones. Zoom, 6. Is that your question? Was your graph wacky? Okay. So zoom, up here's zoom, right under the window. Number 6 puts you back to that window. Yes?
So it'll just like spaz out at times?
I don't know why it does it, yes. Like some of the first hours, their origin was way like up here. I don't know what makes that happen. I don't know. Okay, and then we're going to be inputting fractions, lots of fractions. So let's remember where our fraction keys are. There are F1 up here with our y equals. So if I'm going to do something with that, with fractions, I have to go green key y equals. And that first thing in the menu is how I input a fraction. So we're going to be using that probably more often than you like. All right. Questions so far? Yes?
So I'm messing around sometimes and I'll go to like Zoom and how do I get out of there? Like, do I hit clear?
Quit. Usually quit, so right here is quit.
Okay.
So if I go second mode, that kind of gets me out of what I'm doing.
Because I've messed up a lot.
Yeah. That gets you out of what you're currently in. Okay, so I'm looking at my notes. I know I don't have them projected up there, but I'm looking at my notes right here. So that's what you should be looking to. And I have the equation y equals 4x minus 7. And I have the equation x plus y equals 8. So you have to have both of your equations in y equals form. They have to say y equals. One of them's done for you. So I put a box around it, put a circle around it, I don't care. I'm going to be putting that into my calculator though. The other equation I got to solve for y. So I'm going to subtract my x. And I get y equals negative x plus 8. Okay, so I'm going to go to my calculator. We have 2 ways we can input an x. I'm going to show you the easy way because people use this as a graphing calculator. X does have its own button. Right here, next to your alpha key, there's the button that has 4 things on it. It says x, comma t, comma theta, comma n.